Live, and it appears we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Bite Back Tour in the city of Sierra Madre. My name is Levy Sun. I'm with the San Gabriel Valley Mosquito and Vector Control District, and you are tuned in to a half hour of just casual conversations regarding what we do in mosquito control, but also how you can stay more bite-free. So we'll get started with introductions. We'll go around this circle here. Go ahead, Carol Ann.
My name is Carol Ann. I'm one of the education specialists at the San Gabriel Valley Mosquito and Vector Control District.
All right, go ahead, Pablo.
Hi, everyone. My name is Pablo Cabrera, and I am the communication specialist here at the district.
Hey, James.
Hi, everyone. I'm one of the assistant vector ecologists here at the district.
And finally, Ali.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ali Gaspar. I'm the outreach assistant here at the district, and I'm also somewhat in front of Sierra Madre City Hall today.
All right, we got someone out there right in the middle of the city. So if you see Ali there, be sure to wave, honk a hello, but drive safely. So today's half hour is going to be jam-packed with some really good information that we have some questions we received from residents in the past. But the big news right now, of course, is West Nile virus. West Nile virus is considered widespread and very active throughout San Gabriel Valley. We haven't detected a positive mosquito sample or a dead bird yet in Sierra Madre, but it is safe to assume that because we have so many different cities that have West Nile virus activity, that any of these mosquitoes lurking in your yard or any of the birds flying through your neighborhood may be carrying it. So we'll have some tips for you on how to stay safe from West Nile virus. A question we get all the time around this time of year is, can you spray? Can you come and treat my neighborhood? Can you come to my yard and treat my yard for these mosquitoes? The answer is we have no plans to do any kind of area-wide treatments in Sierra Madre or anywhere else in San Gabriel Valley. We reserve area-wide treatments for the more extreme scenarios where we have abnormally high virus or mosquito activity, and if it's a public health emergency. So we want to reserve that pesticide to be used strictly for those scenarios. That way we don't end up with pesticide resistance, and we don't want any kind of broad spectrum pesticides being put out there just because we're getting bites. It is unfortunately the reality of living in the cities. You are going to have mosquitoes. You cannot get rid of 100% of them, but you can control them just enough where they're not that much of a nuisance.
And Levy, a quick question. What about dead birds? If I see a dead bird, what does that mean when it comes to West Nile virus?
Oh, yeah, good question. So West Nile virus is supposed to really transmit between the bird and the mosquito and back and forth through the bite of the mosquito. Birds are very susceptible, or certain types of birds are very susceptible. Most of you may know these as corvids, so that you have your crows and ravens, jays. And if there is a bird that is dead from West Nile virus, it is just one indicator of widespread activity. Because birds can fly to different places throughout San Gabriel Valley, we can't say that just because there's a dead bird in front of your door, you have West Nile virus circulating in your neighborhood. It can be across multiple neighborhoods and in different parts of the region.
Right. But so that means that even if there isn't dead birds in your neighborhood, you still could be West Nile virus circulating there, correct?
Correct. And you have mosquitoes that can carry them as well. So the birds can carry the virus for quite a while and fly from place to place. And while they fly from place to place or roost, mosquitoes can feed upon them. So if you do see any dead bird, though, please report that to westnile.ca.gov or 1-877-WNV-BIRD. The more people who report dead birds from Sierra Madre, the more accurate picture we have of where West Nile virus may be spreading. So coming up later this half hour, we're going to talk about repellent. A lot of residents have asked us, what kind of repellent is actually useful for me? Which one is most effective? Which one is just snake oil that may or may not work? So we'll get into that later with Ali. But first up, I want you all to get to know who we are. And if you're just tuning in, you're probably tuning in on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, or on our website. So drop in a comment or question anytime you like. And this is the Bite Back Tour, where we just talk about just all things mosquito. But first up, you need to know who we are. And I want to toss it over to James, who's in our surveillance department, and they are usually our kickoff point to knowing where to start looking at places that may be high risk or places where we can concentrate some enhanced education. But James, what do you all do in surveillance?
Well, here in surveillance, we kind of actually act like the eyes for the district. And we go out on a regular basis, usually Mondays and Tuesdays, and we set routine trapping routes. And those are set out across the district. We usually have at least 2 traps per city. So you don't have to worry about your city not being covered. We actually have our traps at least within a 2-mile zone of each other, so we could get a nice coverage. But we mainly do focus on trapping. And what we'll do is we'll bring the traps back in and we'll go through ID and count the mosquitoes. So we get an idea of the population that's right in that area of the trap. And then if we get enough mosquitoes in the trap, especially certain species like the Quincrae fasciatus, which is our underground mosquito, we will send those in for testing. And that's sent usually down over to the state over at Cal State, Cal Poly. And that actually helps determine what the techs are going to do. So like I said before, we're kind of the eyes. We see where the mosquitoes are active, and then the techs could use the data that we're collecting to basically control the mosquito breeding in a given area. And we also do research projects too, where we're looking at novel studies to kind of see how we can more effectively use our time and also any chemicals that we have at our disposals.
So James, just curious, for a resident that's just maybe casually walking around Sierra Madre, what does it look like when you guys are out there being the eyes of the district for this kind of stuff?
You might not notice us too much, actually, because we're usually pretty quick. So you might notice lab employees setting the trap themselves, and you'll notice us carrying a gray talco box and a black tub, or even a jug of water. And the water is non-toxic. It's just a nutrient-rich water that we make to mimic stagnant water. So the mosquitoes have something to come and draw them in and lay their eggs on, or try to lay their eggs on. And you might also see us laying setting a few other traps. One of them is called our CO2 trap. It's actually right here behind me. I'll be talking about that a little bit later. And that one just is another form of trap looking to capture blood-seeking mosquitoes. But really, people tend to not notice us too much. You'd be surprised by how many people just come up to me and ask what I'm doing, because it's the first time they may have noticed me.
So you guys kind of like hidden in the background, behind the curtains, and checking for
yep.
All right, very cool. So clearly that data comes pouring in. We get data that includes the type of mosquito, how many mosquitoes, and later on through testing, we figure out if these mosquitoes were carrying any kind of pathogens. So locally here, the most prominent one is West Nile virus. So from there, we then send this data in, and operations will then take that from there. And operations is another department that's in our district, and they're the ones that are considered the boots on the ground folks that take the data and they're able to assess where the high risk areas may be in Sierra Madre. And then also they're the ones that you may see most often as residents doing any kind of service request response. So if you have submitted stuff into our tip line, and we need to investigate it, these are the folks that you will see coming around your neighborhood. And they're also the same folks who are in charge of responding to any kind of swimming pool issues. Some of you who may have swimming pools may have received some kind of notices from us in the past. And thank you to all the residents in Sierra Madre who've actually submitted their confirmation of their pool being operational. If you look on the screen, we do not like to see pools that are green and stagnant or not operating. We do like to see pools that are chlorinated and have running pumps. And if you aren't aware, a full swimming pool that's gone bad can produce at least 3 million mosquitoes a month. And that's a lot of mosquitoes generating out of a pool and into a neighborhood. And we don't want that to occur. But if you do notice any green pools around Sierra Madre or anywhere else in San Gabriel Valley, feel free to submit that to our tip line at sgvmosquito.org, and we'll be sure to handle that from there.
And Levy, if a technician or, for example, somebody like James setting up a trap somewhere in the city, do you have to pay a service or anything like that? Do you have to pay anything for somebody on your house?
That's a great question. So we are completely tax funded upfront once a year, and you do not have to pay us for our services as we stop by. So please definitely use us. We are your public servants here to serve you and make sure that we control and prevent any disease outbreaks in your neighborhood. So that's with surveillance and now operations. If you're just tuning in, this is the Bite Back Tour in the city of Sierra Madre. We just listened to James talking about surveillance and what they do to capture data for operations. And we heard me talking about what operations does in terms of using that data. We'll dive into a little bit with that trap that James is showing when we talk about dense vegetation and the type of mosquitoes that may be attracted to that kind of stuff. But I want to toss it over to Carol Ann, because we cannot forget that while we do tackle the six-legged creatures in Sierra Madre, we can't forget the two-legged ones, and that's us, because we play a vital role in making sure we stay bite-free, especially the little ones, our students. So Caroline, how do you take all this information and teach it to young students?
Well, first of all, communications is that third pillar in vector control. So it's really, really important to make sure that you're taking all this data and you're communicating it to residents. And children are, a very significant group, and we found that they're very good ambassadors of the information and bring it home and share it with their families. So we try and present it in as engaging a way as we can. This fall, Sierra Madre teachers, we still have space in our community citizen science program, Operation Mosquito Grid, and vector inspectors. So please get on our vectoreducation.org website and sign up. Get your students involved. It's all self-contained, and we do all the reminders. So it's like super, super easy and fun for them because it gets them outside, gets them doing hands-on science. And I just want to throw in a little teaser. You're going to be hearing from us very soon because we have a very exciting new tool in our educational toolbox that we'd really like your kids to check out. And they're going to like this one. This is not, drudge homework. This is something fun and visual and engaging that has actually attracted the attention of a prominent scientific group. So we'll have more information on that as well, but it's a quick, fun, engaging activity that immerses your students in science. So stay tuned for that.
All right, thank you, Caroline. And I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen here. Hopefully it's right. Do you see the Bite Back Tour?
Yes.
On there? All right, let me go ahead and shift over to this slide here to make sure that Sierra Madre educators are aware of this URL, vectoreducation.org. You can sign up for citizen science projects like Caroline mentioned, and also any other classroom projects as well.
Right. So get your foot in the door before we fill up.
Now, space is limited, so definitely sign up soon. All right, thank you so much. So if you're tuning in, this is the Bite Back Tour in the city of Sierra Madre. We're just getting now into what we do as a district and how we serve you as residents. Now, let's switch over real quick to just the general management of mosquitoes. So we obviously take care of the public space. That's your gutters, your ponds. We set out the traps in public areas sometimes, and we are able to cover that. But one place that is really difficult for us to get into is obviously backyards and private property, like patios and balconies. So we need your help, and there are different ways to go about helping us keep Sierra Madre more bite-free. And one is the elimination of stagnant water. All mosquitoes, no matter what species they are here in the city, they require stagnant water or trapped water in a container to complete their life cycle. So that's a pretty obvious thing that most of you already know. But the second thing here is dense vegetation. Dense vegetation has a big part in how these mosquitoes interact with us here. I'm going to share my screen again to reveal a species of mosquito, or a genus rather, called Aedes mosquito. And many of you know them as ankle biters, black and white mosquitoes. There are 3 different species of these Aedes mosquitoes here in San Gabriel Valley. We just kept it simple for you, call them Aedes mosquitoes. And these are the ones that bite during the day quite aggressively. You go outside for 30 seconds, you come back in with 4 bites across your leg. These are the ones you probably are aware of. And these are considered invasive to our region, or these particular species, which means they have a very huge negative impact on human health. And the trap that James is showing is actually a special trap that's meant to capture these types of mosquitoes too. Granted, they can capture other types, but these mosquitoes, as they seek out the blood meal or they want to take a bite, they may sometimes be sucked into something like this. James, you want to talk a little bit more about the CO2 trap? Oh, your mic is muted.
Sorry, I was doing something in the background. But yes, I definitely would like to talk about the CO2 trap here. This guy is a multiple piece trap here. The top part here, this is called our dry ice bucket. And this is actually where our source of CO2 comes from. Can't really see, but there's little holes drilled in at the bottom here. And the tub is insulated on the inside. So as the dry ice evaporates, it produces the CO2 gas and it diffuses out through these little holes. And then we have our trap here. This is actually a trap that I redesigned using Orange County Vector Control's own plans. And it basically takes the old D cell batteries that are in there, it gets rid of them, and uses a big 6-volt rechargeable battery that lasts a lot longer and could go for multiple days if needed. And then finally, we have our net at the bottom. This guy is just a long piece of mesh. It's real easy to use. Once you come up to it, if you have mosquitoes in the net, you just give it a little tap on the side here, pull down, tighten, and you're good to go. Another thing I wanted to show you on this guy really quick too, it doesn't just use CO2, it uses a little LED light at night to also try to draw in mosquitoes as well as black flies. In Sierra Madre, you might see me setting this most often to do our black fly monitoring, which I do every other week.
So James, can you give a little more detail? So the mosquitoes, they pick up the CO2, and then how do they end up in the net? It's because it's not totally clear.
No, mosquitoes, they'll normally pick up on CO2 at a distance to come in and find the host. So they'll start hovering around the trap. And usually what they start looking for then is human body odor or bird body odor. We actually share a couple chemicals or key chemicals in our body odor with birds. And so you'll see a lot of mosquitoes flying around, and as they get towards the trap, the actual top of the trap or the battery casing, they'll actually be pulled in, and there's a fan in here pushing air down. And mosquitoes are such weak flyers that they can be drawn in from near the bucket and also beside the trap itself.
And could you clarify why CO2?
Oh yeah, CO2 is actually, that's the gas that we give off when we exhale, as well as mammals and birds. So mosquitoes are drawn to that. Their antennas are actually tuned to it. So insects use their antennas more like we use our eyes. They're very in tune to chemical trails. So they'll come in and follow it, knowing that animals and humans produce CO2. So they're looking for that blood meal. They'll come in and find the trap, and they'll get pulled down into it and into the net.
Cool.
Got it. Thank you for clarifying. And so these mosquitoes, they're drawn into this trap. They're drawn by our CO2. And dialing back to the dense vegetation I was mentioning earlier is that they may be hiding out before they come out and look for you in places that look similar to what you see on your screen. Dense growing ivy to yards that may look a little bit like Jurassic Park, where there's a lot of shade, maybe some humidity trapped underneath the leaves. So that's why you hear sometimes talk about using more California natives. Even plants like bromeliads can attract mosquitoes because the center cups can hold that kind of trapped stagnant water. So California natives are definitely the best way to go in terms of reducing the attractiveness of these adult mosquitoes hovering around, trying to escape the summer heat, and then eventually finding you through the CO2 you breathe out. There's something else that also has come across our desk from a lot of residents, and that's the use of these commercial mosquito traps you buy off the shelf. They're powered by these LED lights, they're these bug zappers, and people have asked, do these actually work? Well, we have Pablo, who's actually right now in the field, who actually set one up for the past few weeks. So Pablo, why don't you give us a bit of a sneak peek as to whether or not something like these bug zappers actually work in the field?
Yeah, definitely. And just like Livy mentioned, we've seen a lot of these traps around a lot of residential homes with people desperately trying to eliminate any mosquito sources, any mosquitoes around them. So I'm going to show you what we possibly captured. As you can see, it's over my shoulder there. And we've had it set up for a few weeks. So we'll see if we caught any mosquitoes and any potential insects that might be in there. So the way this fan works, this quote unquote trap works, is it has a fan that is supposed to be sucking up mosquitoes. It also has the light, and it's supposed to be heating up a metal that's emitting CO2. And just like what we learned with James, is the CO2 does attract mosquitoes, but sometimes that's not always the case in the way these traps work. So I'm just gonna get set up here real quick and open up the trap and see what we got.
Well, one thing I wanted to bring up really quick too is that when you're using traps like this that emit a light or even a CO2, you do want to set them away from your house. It might seem a little adverse to normal thinking, but these are going to draw in a lot of insects, not just mosquitoes. And if you don't want them buzzing around you and bothering you, it's a good idea to try to place it in a back corner of your yard or somewhere that you don't normally frequent.
That's a good point. Yeah, you don't want to be that magnet for your neighbors.
Yeah, exactly.
All your neighbors will love you because you're drawing all the mosquitoes towards you or bugs towards you.
Definitely. So here's the trap. So I just opened it, and as you can see, there's a lot of critters in there. And we can see right here, if you can see there, these are clearly not mosquitoes. That is not a mosquito right there.
It looks like a beetle.
Yes. And then there's a lot of moths in here. I see some midge as well, which are commonly mistaken for mosquitoes. Let's see, there is one mosquito here. Here's a Culex.
So a lot of insects that are not the target of what you might want to get rid of. And that's a shame because, you know, perhaps those bugs could have been food for baby birds or something like that. And they're just taken out of the ecosystem.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and I think
I'm seeing a lot of beneficial insects.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's definitely one of the biggest things that we hope people understand when it comes to these traps. You might be capturing a mosquito here and there, but based on what we caught here, the majority are beneficial insects, like you can see there. Beneficial insects that are good for pollinating, and like Caroline mentioned, food for other birds, and just insects that are doing the work that they're supposed to be doing. And mosquitoes aren't necessarily adding to any of that. So sure, you might be capturing 1 or 2 mosquitoes, but you're killing off a lot of beneficial insects that are good for all of us.
Another thing I want to bring up too is that CO2 traps, throughout all my years of working in vector control, it's roughly like 9.5. CO2 traps are really difficult to have success with in an urban and suburban area. There's just so many other sources of CO2, humans walking around, dogs, birds, you name it, where you'll normally see us use CO2 traps in more wilderness areas where you're going to have more water breeding sources versus hosts.
That's very interesting because you think that one trap fits all, but we're such a complex, and we have such a complex infrastructure with so many species, dwelling within this infrastructure that you folks in surveillance are really top notch and trying to understand the nuances of how these mosquitoes actually work and what they'd be attracted to. Because for me, I would have thought, let's use CO2 traps everywhere, but
Yeah. We actually, while I was working at Orange County, we saw a kind of a paradigm shift where they would use CO2 traps besides gravid traps. And they stopped doing that, and they started actually using the BG trap near the gravid trap because the CO2s just weren't successful.
Interesting. All right. Well, if you're just tuning in, this is the Bite Back Tour in the city of Sierra Madre. We just talked a little bit about some things that you may not know about, including dense vegetation. Please scale back any dense vegetation. Look at California native plants. Those mosquito traps that you buy off the shelf may actually end up killing more beneficial insects than mosquitoes. But there's one more thing that we teased earlier in the beginning of the segment, and that was repellent use. Ali, I don't know if you're available, but we have a lot of residents who have asked about the use of repellents and whether or not those are effective. With West Nile virus circulating throughout San Gabriel Valley, we want to make sure that you stay bite-free from these mosquitoes. So, Ali, whenever you're ready, just pop your camera on and I will be able to throw it to you. In the meantime, though, I do want to share my screen to show you all the most common repellent that you can use. Let me make sure I get the right screen going here. Trying to move it around, but it's not moving. There we go. Share. All right, you should be seeing a screen that shows how to properly apply repellent. At the very top here, the most common ingredient you should look for, and the ones that are EPA registered and CDC recommended, is our oil of lemon eucalyptus, also known as PMD. There's DEET, picaridin, and IR3535. DEET is considered a gold standard. In fact, DEET has improved dramatically in the past 10 years. It used to be that DEET felt like you're putting on gasoline on your skin. It's very oily, it stank. But the past couple of years, I've noticed some formulation of DEET that's actually quite nice. They reduced the percentage down to about 5%, and they were able to enhance it with much better scents so that it doesn't smell so terrible. Oil of lemon eucalyptus is rising in popularity, and so is picaridin. So be sure to check those out by picking up a bottle at anywhere where they sell outdoor supplies or any kind of or any pharmacy actually too. And the key thing about repellent is to make sure you apply it to all exposed skin. Just spritzing it on your wrist and your neck like it's perfume will not work. These mosquitoes will target any skin that is exposed. And then, like sunscreen or lotion, make sure you apply it evenly so that you have full coverage. Ali, are you back with us?
Hey, Levy, I am back. Sorry, I was stopped by a resident. Just curious to see what we would do.
Oh, of course. Well,
yeah,
hello, resident, if you're tuning in.
I know, he just took off. Unfortunately, he had an errand to run, but I did invite him to come by. It's actually really interesting because I have a friend who lives here and she's always complaining about the mosquitoes. And so I'm always suggesting to her to make sure that she's wearing mosquito repellent, as you just demonstrated for them. And the way that I tell her how to do it is to evenly apply over all of her skin. Today, I'm actually using picaridin. So you just want to make sure that you don't overdo it, but that you follow the label instructions, which is just to evenly apply, and you should be good to go.
And then for kids, what's the proper way to do it? Do I just tell a kid to close his eyes and spray his face?
No, that would be very unwise. You definitely want to make sure that you're always spraying in your hands as the adult, and then that you apply on the child's face and everywhere else, and including your own. You don't ever want to spray your own face. You want to go ahead and pat on, like I just showed you right now, by spraying it into my hands first. And with children, it's good that you brought that up. We actually have a lot of information of that repellent sheet that you just showed, and also with our various ingredients, which are oil of lemon eucalyptus, also known as PMD, picaridin, DEET, and IR3535. Those are our 4 CDC recommended ingredients that are sure to work, and you can always take that information to the child's pediatrician or the next time that you go shopping, just to make sure that you've got the right one and that everything will be fine after that.
And Ali, don't mosquito repellents come in different forms, right? It's not just the spray.
Yeah, I personally like the spray just because it's easier for me. But it also comes in aerosol form, in a lotion form, and also a wipe form, which funny enough, kids actually tend to like the wipe form more because I think they think that anything sprayed on them is gonna sting. So it's really convenient also to have the wipes like in your purse or in your car and places like that.
Awesome. Thank you,
Yeah.
Allie.
You're welcome.
Now, in terms of what people can do around their neighborhood, I know there's something that we have called a Bite Back program. Could you talk a little bit more about the Bite Back program and how residents can get more involved with us?
Yeah, well, they can visit our website, and they can also on there, what it is basically our Bite Back program is a grassroots approach to like beating mosquitoes and staying bite-free in your neighborhood. We're really trying to work on creating healthy bite-free communities that residents like here in Sierra Madre can contribute to that. So you can contribute in a way of, going door to door and delivering door hangers. That way you spread the word to your neighbors. You can also sign up for our emails and receive, tips and tricks how to stay bite free and also stay up to date and stay in the loop with us whenever we have an event going on near you. And then you can also even be a Bite Back captain, which is my absolute favorite thing that you can do as a Bite Back champion, because you're really in charge of your entire street and you're really working to eliminate mosquitoes there. So you can check all of that out on our website.
And we do have the information displayed on the screen, so feel free to check it out. And we hope to see more Sierra Madre champions in the future. This pretty much rounds out our tour stop in the city of Sierra Madre. So we're gonna go into closing remarks and any last minute information you all like to share. So let's go around the virtual room and let's start with Pablo. Anything you'd like to share with residents?
Yes, definitely. Actually, I have something to visually share, some mosquito larvae, which I actually had a little emergence here happen earlier today. So glad I caught that one. And but again, just showing how quickly mosquitoes emerge and become flying adults from egg to larva. It's as short as 7 days. So if you see these little guys swimming around in any stagnant water sources around you, you want to dump out that water, tip it out, and toss out any containers that you might have around your yard, because again, all it takes is 7 days. And if these guys, it's much easier to catch these guys swimming in the water, just dumping it out kills them off, versus them all flying around as adults. It's much harder to catch those. So just make sure we tip, toss, and protect ourselves from mosquitoes.
Absolutely agree. Caroline, any closing remarks?
Just get those students signed up, and we've got all kinds of fun stuff for the fall.
All right, looking forward to it. You got me in suspense. I almost want to see what it is, but we won't reveal it just yet.
No, not yet.
All right, James, any closing remarks or anything else you want to share?
I did want to just show really quick. I do have our gravid trap out here, so I just wanted to show that off really quick for everybody. This is our main workhorse here. This is looks like a taco box, but it's a lot more. If you open it up, our engine and fan sit on the left here. We have our net or container that captures the mosquitoes here, and a battery on the right. And if you notice, there's a shimmering going on in the tray. That's where our man-made gravid stagnant water goes, or hay water is infusion of hay that just sits in water for about 3 days. And actually the mosquitoes will come in, they'll try to lay their eggs on the water surface, and they'll actually be sucked up through the tube at the bottom here. And then they'll just reside in the trap. Now it's called a gravid trap because adult mosquitoes that have already taken a blood meal and made eggs are called gravid mosquitoes. And those are the ones we're mainly trapping in here. And they're a good sign for disease kind of tracking and knowing what's going on in your area, because a CO2 trap is trying to collect mosquitoes that are seeking a blood meal and most likely haven't taken one yet.
So
I just
James,
wanted to show you guys that.
So James, you're telling me that if no one in Sierra Madre were to wear repellent and they get bit up by mosquitoes, chances are this trap you're showing us is going to capture, hopefully some of these mosquitoes have bit the residents.
Yes, because it's attuned to, or it's meant to actually seek or draw in the gravid mosquito, which isn't looking for blood, but is looking to lay its eggs. And this was actually developed by my old boss at Orange County. And that was its ultimate goal for the most of, for decades and decades. They just had the CO2 and they were trying to figure out ways to find more positive mosquitoes so they could actually tell what's going on in the area. And this turned out to be the revolutionary tool right here.
Wow. All right. I know you may not like this because it'll dampen your data, but a challenge to Sierra Madre residents: use as much repellent as you can when you're outside, and also tip out that stagnant water so we don't see any mosquito entering this gravid trap in Sierra
Exactly.
Madre.
I also always suggest that if you have any furry or four-legged friends, especially those that live outdoors, make sure they're on a routine flea medication because it does treat fleas, ticks, and also mosquitoes.
Good point. Good point. Thank you. Thank you for the extra share, James. And finally, Allie.
Hi everyone. I just wanted to show you guys something real quick. So where I happen to be standing, there's actually a lot of dense vegetation here. And I'm, like I said, I'm currently in Sierra Madre, and it's important to make sure that you ditch this density and that you trim it from the roots up. That way you can allow a lot of airflow. As James said earlier, that mosquitoes are very weak flyers. So there's a lot of airflow, chances are they're not going to be there resting and waiting to bite you. So in addition to wearing mosquito repellent, you also want to make sure that you are tipping out all of your stagnant water. These are just some sources where you might find mosquitoes. I know a lot of kids tend to leave their toys outside, so that can collect water. Also, dog bowls or animal or pet bowls that have been left outside need to constantly be changed. And as Levy mentioned earlier, bromeliads, sometimes even lucky bamboo, just things that are rooted in water or that can hold water. You want to make sure that you're dumping all of that out because mosquitoes will grow in the oddest places. And that's it for me. Thank you, guys.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Allie. So that rounds out our tour stop in the city of Sierra Madre. Thanks for joining us. And we hope you stay healthy and stay bite free.